Welcome to Applicant Tracking Systems, also known as ATS, the computer programs behind job hiring decisions, a training video brought to you by Montana's Department of Labor and Industry and Job Service Montana. If you are applying for jobs online but not getting an interview, you are probably a victim of ATS filtering. In this training, you will learn how ATS programs work, how to quickly identify if an ATS program is being used, and some tips on how to beat these systems and land an interview. What is an applicant tracking system and how does it affect you? ATS are the software programs evaluating your skills and abilities and oftentimes deciding if you deserve a job interview or not. Today's job market offers hundreds, if not thousands, of applicant tracking systems, or ATS. Employers who are actively recruiting used to spend not hours or days, but weeks or months sifting through applications, assessing skill levels, interviewing, checking references, selecting, and onboarding candidates. Applicant tracking systems streamline the process for employers, filtering dozens, if not hundreds, of applications, providing a report of the top candidates worthy of the interview process. With pricing options to meet any employer's needs, ranging from $2 to $2,000 a month, ATS saves time and energy and money for employers. As a job seeker who has applied for a job online, you have almost certainly already used an applicant tracking system. These systems make it easier and quicker to apply. By uploading a resume or linking directly to your Indeed or LinkedIn profile, the system auto-populates most of the fields for you. While bypassing the tedious process of retyping the same information into site after site is a relief to many, it's important to note generic information auto-populated will not get you into the final cut. ATS programs might be used in the application itself. That's the pre-population of those answers, the parsing of the resume to determine if someone meets qualifications, assessment questions to determine how someone might act or react in certain situations, pre-screening virtual interviews. These are questions posed to applicants to filter out unqualified applicants. Reference checks. Emails are sent to references asking questions about the candidate and if they would endorse or reject them. And even the onboarding process. Information is pre-populated in new hire paperwork. It is very important to understand what applicant tracking systems do and do not look for, and how to maneuver through the systems so that you can land an interview and hopefully score a job offer. Employers large and small are using ATS across the globe. 86% report using an automated system during at least one part of the job application process. There are hundreds of software programs that offer applicant tracking systems, and these are just some of the top performers. Notable customers: Workaday, that would be Walmart, FedEx, and Target. Talio, that's the state of Montana, UPS, and Starbucks. SAP, also known as SuccessFactors, Kroger, TJ Maxx use that. ICMS, PetSmart, Aramark, and Healthcare Services Group all use ICMS. Let's start by discussing how ATS works in the application process and things that you can do to ensure that you are considered for an interview. Applicant tracking systems look for specific keywords from the job description and a person's background, their education and work experience, to find good potential fits. There are thousands of different ATS programs, and they all work a little bit different. An online job application often begins with the option of uploading a resume. Some sites offer an option of copying and pasting into a field instead, or maybe they offer the option of typing info into the different fields. At this point, ATS breaks up the content of the resume and assigns it to the applicable sections of an application. For example, it sees an employer listed under a heading named Work Experience on the resume, and it automatically finds the business name and puts it in the field assigned to employer, and the job title and puts that in the position field, and so on and so forth. As a job seeker, you can and should modify the application after the program pre-populates those individual fields for you. All fields should be completed. Enter N/A for not applicable if it doesn't apply to you. Next, ATS looks at the different sections of the job description and sections of the application that correlate. For instance, if a job description states certain skills are important, ATS will look at your application to see if those skills are listed in the section assigned to skills and abilities. Lastly, ATS assigns a score to each application based on number of matches. The higher an applicant score, the more likely they are to make it to the final cut. Curious what your score would be? Copy and paste your resume and the job description into the Resume Optimizer tool on jobscan.co. You will receive a match rate and tips on how you can improve, from keywords that are missing to a date format mismatch. When an employer signs up for ATS, they're asked to indicate a score associated with selected candidates. They're also asked to identify what they call knockout questions. These are things that, if answered a certain way, will automatically take an applicant out of the running. Something like certain requirements. Employers also identify experience, education, and skills that they would prefer and also that they would like to have. Here are some examples of questions an employer may choose to add as a knockout question. On the right is a screen from a popular ATS program, ICIMS. When an employer is asked to identify the years of experience that would be nice to have and the skills that they would like to see in an employer. So in those knockout questions, you can see, are you willing to work any shift? So the assumption here is that if you said no, they may knock you out. Have you been convicted of a felony? And then they go on to ask you questions about that. That might knock a person out. Have you ever had discipline assessed as a result of violating a safety rule? Might knock you out. ATS is a powerful tool used to determine if you'll get an interview. But how can you tell if a business is using ATS or not? It might be easier to describe ways to tell if you're applying for a job and not dealing with an applicant tracking system. Employer surveys show that over 75% of employers are using ATS to scan resumes. If you're handing a paper application or a resume to a person, or if you're asked to send a resume and or a cover letter via email, then your information is probably not being scanned through ATS. However, if you're applying online, there's probably some type of ATS at play. There are a few things in particular that you can look at to easily determine if an employer is using an applicant tracking system. When applying online, once you get to the actual application process, after clicking Apply Now, look for the following criteria. Scroll to the bottom of the page and look for a company logo and the words Powered By. This is a clear indicator that a company is using an applicant tracking system. Look at the URL in the address field. Has the URL changed to something different than the site that you started in? If you started on a company website and you click Apply or Apply Now, and you're taken to a third-party site, ATS is now at play. If you're asked to upload one or more documents, you can anticipate that there's an ATS program and it's getting ready to parse out the content in your resume. As they say, better safe than sorry. If you're filling out an online job application or submitting a resume electronically, assume that you are working with an ATS program. An employer might even choose to submit your emailed resume into an ATS system themselves. If you're applying for a job through a job posting like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, or Snagajob, these sites are using their own ATS programs. Now that you have a clear understanding of what applicant tracking systems are and how to spot them, it's time to move on to how to beat them. Remember, ATS can be at play in many different stages of the process, from the initial application all the way to onboarding. The biggest struggle seems to take place before you're offered an interview. So this is where we'll start today. As with every stage of the job application process, the best advice is to think like an employer. Consider what they want and find a way to let them know that you fit the bill. Consider each step of the process. Your application answers, those pre-populated from your uploaded resume, need to reflect the experience, education, and skills the employer has identified in the job description. As ATS analyzes your application and compares it to the job description and/or the information an employer entered as important, it looks for matches, so use keywords. Note, this means that you're going to need to customize each resume that you submit. Beyond your resume, consider adding keywords from a job description to your LinkedIn profile, particularly if you're applying to a job through LinkedIn, or if you anticipate that the recruiter might look at your profile. The best way to determine what the employer considered important is to review the job description. Print the job description and look through it piece by piece, highlighting the words that, as an employer, you would think was an important skill, experience, or ability. If you struggle with determining which words are important, consider copying and pasting the job description into a free word cloud generator, like TagCrowd. After reading through the job description a few times, consider what that employer may have indicated as skills, abilities, education, and experience that they would prefer or would like to see in an applicant. Add a title to your resume that matches the job title to quickly link at least one keyword. ATS systems continue to get smarter, so beware of sneaky tricks like listing the keywords on the page in white font. ATS will pick these up, but they'll see that you tried to deceive them and they will automatically kick you out of the applicant pool for that alone. Just a reminder, as you are struggling to add keywords, it's not imperative that the keywords are in the work experience. They might also be found in different sections of your resume. However, ATS will look and give points for overall use of keywords in addition to use of keywords in the aligning sections on a resume or application, which may assess a higher value. When ATS is looking for experience, they'll look for specific job title and then how many years and compare that with the requirement. Thus, you must list your previous job as the specific job title, and then in parentheses, you can list your actual job title if it's a hair different. Also note, ATS is very particular It looks for the word or words an employer used when they signed up, and I mean the exact words. So if an employer says that they need somebody who is detail-oriented, you need to list your skill as just that, spelled exactly the same way. ATS might not identify attention to detail as an aligning skill. One way to think about how very specific keywords need to be is to use Boolean logic, which is very literal and analytical. For example, if an employer wants someone with a Harvard degree, Joe Harvard will pass. Jill Smith, who lives on Harvard Street, will pass. If an employer requires Excel and an applicant lists Microsoft Suite, they get no points for that. Many of the best tips to follow to beat ATS relate to ensuring that ATS sees the important information in your resume. When uploading your resume, it's important to follow directions to the letter. If the job posting says, upload your resume, and indicates a file type that's supported, be sure to send that same type of document. If you upload a document that's not supported, ATS may not be able to read the information in your resume at all. The way that you format your document matters, especially if you upload a Word document. Many applicant tracking systems are not able to identify text if it's hidden in a special design, shape, chart, or table. Fancy graphics and pictures can throw some ATS programs off as well. The program might see your resume as a picture document instead of a text document. Information included in a header or footer is also not detectable. If your margins are smaller than 0.5, the information outside those parameters will not be seen at all. And of course, that might change the way that the remaining information is seen. Special characters are not supported and might eliminate the entire data chunk. This comes into play specifically if you use a parenthesis or a hyphen in your name. It can eliminate your entire name. When including dates in your resume, ATS will pick them up better if they're formatted correctly. They want to see month, / year. So like 03/2022. And they like to see them on the right side. ATS prefers right tabs over any other option. Use easily identified headings. Remember, ATS is looking for work experience, so to put it in professional experience section is going to be best. Using a header that says something like life activities might take all that information and it might take it out of play entirely because it can't link it up. Do not use abbreviations or acronyms at all, especially if they're not used in the job description. And applicant tracking systems tend to be picky about font type as well, so use a basic font option rather than a fancy one. Or an employer may see gobbledygook like this. I believe this is the single most important takeaway. Saving in plain text will not solve all of your ATS issues, but it does solve many. It changes undetectable font into all one size career font. It changes bullets into asterisks that can be detected, and it removes tables for you. A very important piece for ATS is to upload in plain text. If you don't, this is what they might see, and honestly, this resume would not even make it to HR. Other problems include misinterpreting of tables and bullets and ignoring them altogether, not recognizing headers, so not seeing your experience or education at all, and bringing in the information all wonky. So, how do you save in plain text to upload that version? Follow these simple steps when saving and you'll be set. It's important that you save 3 different versions of your resume as they're all used a little bit differently. Your Word document, you're going to want that to make changes later. A PDF version, that works great to email or to print to make sure it's going to look exactly like you expect it to. And plain text to upload for ATS. Now that your brain is overwhelmed by all of that computer talk, and we're trained to write and rewrite our resume to ATS systems, we need to remember that the whole idea is to make it past the computer to a human, in which case we need to make sure that the resume is worthy of HR reading it too. So there's a fine line between using keywords to identify with the job and using your professional communication skills to wow the recruiter. We covered ways to respond to ATS when applying online, but ATS is often at play long after you hit the submit button. Let's discuss online employment assessments and what you can do to conquer them too. Pre-employment assessments are often automatically generated following the submittal of the application. Questions on these tests range from general personality tests to cognitive ability and skills-based. The purpose is to compare your traits with those necessary for the role. The employer will receive a report of the top candidates, assessing their strengths, motivations, limitations, and potential. The 2 most popular types of tests employers utilize are personality and behavioral or situational judgment tests. We'll discuss each in detail. Generally speaking, as you consider each question, assume that you already have the job and that you're a great employee. So don't answer based on past jobs or current life experiences. Employers choose personality questions that relate to the context of the work, not social life, so answer with that in mind. Take your time. Your responses will be truthful and the most indicative of your true self when you're calm and you're not rushed. Some tests are timed, but try not to let that factor in. Don't overthink the answers. Even tests that are not timed may time you out of a screen if you wait too long to respond. And they might be tracking how long you took to answer the question. Remember, the first answer that comes to mind is usually the one that is the most reflective of your true thoughts and feelings. Consider the position and what traits they need somebody to be good at. So if it's a cashier position, they will want you to be customer service focused. Try not to choose neutral answers like neither agree nor disagree, at least not very often. It shows that you're indecisive or lack conviction. And if ATS identifies an indecisive pattern, it will label that as a potential limitation. Additionally, these answers do not allow ATS to identify a personality trait one way or another. So chances are you'll not be a strong match that you need to be to get the job. Answering with strongly agree or strongly disagree repeatedly makes an applicant sound too sure of themselves. ATS might consider you closed-minded. The same questions will likely be asked several times in different ways. Job applicants that answer the same way to each of these questions show their convictions to the underlying question. For instance, if you answer one question about telling the truth, strongly agree, but the next question, just agree, the report will show your truthfulness score as inconsistent. When an employer decides to use a computer assessment, they work with the software company to create a test specific to their position, or they can choose a pre-made assessment, say for retail or construction. They choose the type of test questions, so personality, reasoning, critical thinking, situational, judgment. and then the actual questions. Lastly, they choose a norm group to compare the applicant's results to. They'll be offered choices such as graduates, entry level, apprentices, managers or executives, or general population. A candidate's score is measured against all of the people in that group that have taken that test, determining their score. Some employers use personality tests pre-interview, and some choose to give these tests later in the recruitment process or even shortly after a person is hired. They help employers determine if you'll make a good fit in the company or with certain team members. They will be relevant to the work that you'll be doing in that position, and they'll focus on the traits that the employer has identified as important for that position. So something you'll see in the job description: flexibility, dependability, integrity. Recruiters who use ATS assessments are using them as one tool, not the only tool. However, an unsuitable report may screen out a candidate who will then not be offered an interview. Personality tests are almost always multiple choice with varying degrees as answers. So you'll see agree, strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and neither agree nor disagree. Or a few statements that ask you to select one as least like you and one as most like you. Personality tests are not timed. Some tips when taking personality tests in particular: take your time. Think over the questions well before answering. Answering too many questions with strongly agree or strongly disagree trigger the computer to consider the candidate as too much of a trait and make you less likely to be chosen to move on to an interview. ATS are built to flesh out candidates that are working hard to provide desirable responses rather than to answer honestly. So they throw in certain questions to flesh out these candidates. For example, have you ever lied to anyone? A never answer will flesh out the candidate as someone who is not answering honestly, but trying to give a desirable answer. Personality tests are usually quite long and 15 to even 45 minutes to complete. Remain focused to the end. The worst thing to do is to get overwhelmed and start answering questions randomly without even reading the question. Read each question carefully and answer them all as accurately as possible. And the last and probably best tip is to answer the questions as the best version of yourself. You want to make a good impression, but you want to be real. If you were to trick the test and get the job, but your skill sets were not aligned to the job, you would not be happy with the position either. Here are a few sample personality questions. You enjoy vibrant social events with lots of people. You get to pick agree to disagree. You often spend time exploring unrealistic yet intriguing ideas. Your travel plans are more likely to look like a rough list of ideas than a detailed itinerary. Personality tests are very popular, and most assessments will include some questions that cover these transferable skills. Employers receive reports on the top candidates similar to this one. Depending on the software they choose to use, they may even receive a score that aligns a candidate to a specific job. In this example, the candidate received an overall job fit score of 4. This test scores people from 1 to 10. A score of 4, 5, 6, or 7 are considered average. Most likely, a report of top candidates would only include people who scored better than average in the selected categories. It's easy to see how important having a clear understanding of the position and the skills the employer deems essential is. Review the job description. Try to determine which traits would be valuable to have. Another approach is to identify traits that are valued in the profession, so things like diligence, hard work, teamwork, or detail-oriented. Situational judgment tests are very popular. They're a great way to gauge how someone may behave in certain scenarios. They test a person's behavioral decision-making skills and thought processes. Specific scenarios are presented with 4 or 5 possible actions that you can take. You might be asked to decide which is the best answer or to rate their effectiveness. The questions posed will likely be related to the position, so review the job description. Your answers should reflect what the position will demand of you. For instance, if the position is for a retail clerk, they'll probably ask questions about thievery, and they expect to be able to trust a good employee, and you'll need to show your integrity in the answers that you provide. Before you begin the test, make sure that you have plenty of time. These are often timed, and that you're in a quiet, comfortable place, and that you have a decent internet connection. Go to speedtest.net to check your internet speed. You'll probably not be able to retake this test without calling the hiring manager if something goes wrong. Read the instructions carefully. You could bomb the whole thing by answering 1 as best when 5 was the best answer. Read the entire question and each answer before carefully making any selections. Never assume. Use the specific information that you're given without inferring anything else into it. Identify what the underlying question is specifically. Is it trust, honesty, problem solving? Answer with that focus in mind. When answering these questions, consider the level of authority of the position for which you're applying, as well as the demands that will be placed on you. Select an answer that matches the status level of the role as well. Here is a sample of a situational judgment question. You're working retail. Your coworker who works in the office supply section is out sick. You're on your way to your regularly scheduled break. You walk through the office supply section of the store and see the shelves are in disarray. Which options would be the most and the least effective to do? Take your break, but stop by on your way back and tidy up a little bit if it's still necessary. Not a great response. It's a little bit too little and a little bit too late. It would put you back to work late from your break, and the business would suffer during your break. You could go back to your section and ask your team lead if you can be spared for 10 minutes to help out the office supply section and then take your break a few minutes later. Not a bad response. You could do nothing. The team leader of the office supply section probably has it under control. Probably not a great answer. You could inform the office supply team lead of the state of disarray. That's not a bad response, as the team leader certainly should know, but it doesn't show that you're supportive or a teamwork-oriented person, especially since you know the office supply section is shorthanded. So the most effective response is B, ask if you can be spared for 10 minutes. You're dealing with the problem while keeping everyone informed. You show your willingness to act as a team member and to help the business as a whole. The least effective response is C, do nothing. You are assuming that the problem will be dealt with as if it's not your problem. The entire store will suffer if it's not dealt with. As you prepare to take a pre-employment test, you can do 2 things. Review the job description, highlighting any traits or skills that you see identified. Next, go to onetonline.org and research the position. Under Skills, Abilities, and Work Activities section, you'll find a list of things an employer will likely expect you to do well. Consider these things as you answer the questions. Here are several sites where you can take free practice tests. The last one has 36 tests available, and they provide a report following each test. They do have a paid version that offers a more extensive report, but the free one is fairly comprehensive. A poll of over 300 HR leaders in 2020 says that 86% are using technology like ATS programs to simplify their hiring process. Applicant tracking systems offer a variety of different tools for employers during the interview stage, including text recruiting, dynamic scheduling, automated pre-screening interviews, and video interviewing. Job seekers are using their mobile phones more than any other device when it comes to the application process. ATS has risen to meet this need, offering a way for employers to reach out to candidates to ask questions as well as to schedule an interview. The best way to prepare for the role ATS may play is to be ready to take calls, texts, and emails from any source. Your device may flag these messages and calls as spam, so turn off any robo-blockers when you're actively looking for work. Check your spam email folder at least once a day, and assume these messages are legitimate and answer promptly and politely. Similarly, companies using ATS to schedule interviews will reach out via text message or email through the app itself to schedule. This eliminates scheduling conflicts, as an employer can enter the dates and the times of the interviews that are available and offer up only these times to the applicants. The software automatically removes instances when they're filled and offers interviewers a calendar view of their scheduling. Employers can set up alerts and notifications in the app as well. Some ATS programs even offer chatbots, artificial intelligence that pops up on the screen as someone is applying for a job, offering to answer any questions they may have about the job or the company. They're so well constructed, a job seeker may think that they're actually talking to a real person. They may even seamlessly offer an interview after an assessment is complete. Prepare by knowing what time and day will work for you. Rescheduling would be very unprofessional and difficult at best. So check your calendar before you respond. Keep in mind that these texts could come from any number. Don't assume that it's a person on the other end who can answer questions like, "What should I wear?" Applicant tracking systems offer pre-recorded interview options to screen out candidates before they make it to the actual interview. Although they are usually offered as a phone interview option, they might also be a recorded video option. In the phone option, ATS sends an email or a text message with a phone number to call and a PIN to enter to answer some pre-recorded questions. It'll be a voicemail type service where you're given a question and a set period of time after the tone or after pressing a key to record your answer. You may or may not be able to re-record the answer, so you'll want to try to get it right the first time. So how can you prepare? Start by finding a quiet spot and time to call the number and be prepared. Stand while you're talking. You'll have better posture and your voice will carry better. And don't forget to smile. Be professional. Dress and act as if you are in a face-to-face interview. Prepare for common interview questions ahead of time. Time your answers to these questions, because they will be timed and it will tell you how long you have. But if you time yourself ahead of time, you'll have a vague idea of how long it might take you to answer. The employer may pose knockout questions, things like, are you willing to work overtime and weekends? Or specific questions about your education and your experience. They're offered a long list of interview questions to choose from. Be eager and pleasant. If you make it through the screening, a human will hear your answers, so charm them. Answer using key words from the job description that you can. ATS will pick up on them, and it might help you to get past them. Preparing for a pre-screening interview via video is similar. You'll receive an email invitation to interview on demand, sometimes called a one-way interview. You'll log in and respond to on-screen prompts. Questions will be posed via text or a pre-recorded video. It will not be a live recruiter. When the video question is over, or you click to advance, you'll be given time to respond, usually around 3 minutes. You may also be given questions requiring a written response to gauge your communication skills. You should prepare as if it were a live interview, as you are being recorded and a recruiter might see your answers and your behavior. So dress appropriately and act professional. Be aware of the background that you use. A blank background is best, or at least not cluttered or distracting. Make sure that there's not a window behind you. It can cast a shadow over your face. Always pre-check your technology and make sure that you have quality connections. Are your mic and your webcam working? You can test those out very easily. Just Google "test my webcam." Be expressive. The computer might not pick up on your expression if it's subtle. Speak clearly. Enunciate your words. Make sure that you're not speaking too quickly. Use your facial muscles. Artificial intelligence will take notice of facial expressions. And use keywords you think that the employer is looking for, and the same AI behind ATS is also behind the artificial intelligence in interviews, so they are looking for a match. Lastly, like a real interview, make eye contact, but in this case, with the camera. Some last thoughts. Read the questions carefully. Don't try to jump ahead. You will not be given an option to go back to complete or change an answer. Understand the rules, like the time on each question, the number of attempts possible. Make sure that you read all those rules ahead of time. Set a timer if they don't offer an on-screen timer. Check your internet connection and make sure that your web browser is up to date. Edge, Chrome, or Firefox usually work best. Video interviewing is becoming the new norm. Many ATS programs offer live video interviews right from their apps. Although similar to Zoom, Skype, or FaceTime, the software may be specific to the ATS company. Keep in mind that you'll be recorded, rated, and the interview will probably be shared with other people on the interview team. Test your equipment before logging in. Check out software ahead of time, and check your computer connection, webcam, and mic about an hour before the meeting. Log on a few minutes early. Make sure that you're ready to go. Make sure that you're ready before you turn your camera on. Stand instead of sitting. Think about posture. If you have more than one monitor, use the one near the camera. Close all other tabs and noise-making apps and any other distractions. Put the dogs outside. Turn off the radio or the TV. Set your phone to silent. Have a printed copy of your resume and the job description handy. You could even jot down a note or two, just don't read from them. Make eye contact. Eye contact and body language are super important, even on video interviews, so back up away from the camera enough for them to be able to see any hand gestures that you make. Just like a regular interview, you're going to want to build rapport. You can do this with any kind of small talk, but during a virtual interview, a nice thing to talk about is the experience that they've been having with virtual interviews or about connectivity issues. Many ATS programs offer the ability to select or create interview questions that are asked of every applicant, and then the ability to rate their responses during the interview itself. Each interviewer's responses are saved and can be compared later. This removes potential biases and ensures a fair interview process for every applicant. It also means that the job seekers need to be tech savvy and be comfortable when they're up against ATS when they're applying. ATS plays a part in the reference check as well. They send your references an email like this one, asking them to rate your performance, and the final question asks the reference to endorse or reject the applicant. The answers are then displayed in the app for the recruitment team to use as they consider offering a position. It's important that job seekers choose references very wisely, as a bad reference can make or break a job interview. There you have it. From the application to onboarding, the recruitment process has been outsourced to applicant tracking systems worldwide. The best thing a job applicant can do is learn how they work and get comfortable using them. A quick recap for you. Employers use applicant tracking systems during every stage of the recruitment process. When applying online, assume ATS is being used. It is best to upload correctly formatted resumes containing keywords in plain text. Think like an employer. Consider what they want to see in an applicant. When completing assessments, take your time and answer as the best version of yourself. Treat virtual ATS processes as professionally as the real interview. There you have it. If you have any questions at all, contact your local job service office today. We can work one-on-one with you to help you to prepare for any one of the stages of the recruitment process. You can go online, go to montanaworks.gov and search for local job service offices under job seeker tools. Give us a ring. We can help.